Welcome to the Strategic Oracle, the transmission space where timing meets soul and wealth begins with the rhythm. Let's begin. The sheer volume of noise, of pressure, of entry into the marketplace is astronomical. And so I have so many conversations on the daily about, how do I get seen? How do I not work so much? How do I get more time? How do I feel more congruent, more resonant, more brilliant, more fulfilled, fill in the blank. And so the conversations are with very successful people. If you were to see them online, if you were to meet them in a room, you would say, wow, that person has it all together. That person is growing. That person is successful. The person is brilliant. And yet there seems to be this undercurrent or this underlying, I call it the, there's just this energy that is not actually helpful. Sometimes it can feel heavy. Sometimes it can be distorted. Other times it can be confusing. And so there's a lack of resonance, right? There's just this misalignment that's happening. And again, I'm having a lot of these conversations with people. And so what I've wanted to do is I've wanted to come up with a very clear and fun story so that you get more information about you and what is going to help you through these very chaotic, very noisy, very stressful, and quite frankly, sometimes downright resisting times. And so, if you've listened to this podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about the new era, you've heard me talk about the unknown, you've heard me talk about lots of different things. I want to kind of bring all that stuff together. And in doing so, I have realized that as I've been in the rooms where the decisions are moving billions, is that power isn't about having more words or even more visibility. It's about having like unification and clarification and even simplification. So along that vein, once you hear the story, it is going to take me some time to set up, take me some time to tell or whatever, but it's a story, right? So it's story time right now. And as I'm framing it and as I'm talking about things, I would like you to put yourself in this moment. I'll take one moment here to just talk about that at the crux of everything is your power. Your power is what drives your worth, your wealth, your impact. It also drives your fulfillment, your satisfaction, your joy. And so when people come to me, I am not looking for what they're saying or what they're thinking. I'm reading their energetic power because that's where the fuel and the direction and the momentum is going to come from. Because my vision, what the work that I do is helping leaders have wealth and impact without compromising themselves, without misdirecting or misaligning their power. That's my key. And so here we go with the story. We've got 4 people. They're in this beautiful mastermind together. They really trust each other. They've formed a relationship and they really trust their mentor that's in the mastermind. This mentor, he or she knows exactly what they're talking about, and they have been setting people up for success for decades. And there's this quote unquote field trip that these groups go on, and they get hand selected to go on. It's very bougie, and there's only 4 people selected in like a 6-month time frame. And so these are very sought after invitations. And so this core group has been selected, and guess what? They know each other. So they feel super comfortable. So, each one of these people gets this invitation. They are instructed to pack an overnight bag. They're instructed where to go. They know, they're like, oh, this is going to be really good for my business. And what they've been told is that they're going to get immediate feedback about what is true for them from their power perspective. And they have these tickets that are called the power tickets that look pretty benign. They do have ink written on them. They're like in silver and they're in gold. And there's this beautiful invitation engraved, and it does say power ticket on it, and it has their name on it. And so they're kind of feeling pretty cool. And so they each go and they arrive and they get taken in by a limousine, and their mentor is there, and their mentor says, do you have your ticket? Do you have your invitation? And each one says yes. And then he kind of reveals that they're at an airport. Okay, the overnight bag makes a little bit of sense, right? So we've got Michael, and he's very much a planner, and he loves being able to have all the data, and he's the go-to person. He does research, he investigates, he's the answer guy, Mr. Knowledge, right? So there's three other women with him, and they adore him because he's the one that grounds them and level sets them. And so they kind of look to Michael, and Michael's like, okay, kind of nodding. He's like, I get it. We're at an airport. We've got overnight bags. This kind of makes sense, right? And then there's Claire, she's super passionate. She is creative, but not creative in the typical sense. She's just so passionate about what she does. She's creating. She can create opportunities. She can create connections. She can create beautiful design if that's what makes sense. She can create systems. But there is some hesitancy that she has because she's so heart-based and she's so heart-driven. You know the heart, guys. The heart is outward, then it's inward. And so there's this flow that when the others look at her, they say, yeah, she's amazing, but sometimes she hides. And then there's Kate. Kate is, by all standards on paper, very successful. She has the team, she has the numbers, she's got the systems. She's the one who goes into these masterminds, and she's working the room, and she's learning, and she's applying, and she's impacting. And so people look to Kate and say, wow, she's got it all. And yet Kate internally is like, yeah, but don't have enough time. I'm having some issues with some of my team. I wish my processes were better. And I've hit an upper limit that I'd like to break free. And then we have Julia. Julia is one of those wildly inspirational, great sense of humor people. She is, an influencer or celebrity or titan. She's achieved success that is seemingly beyond other people, but she has this tendency to be so far ahead of others that she needs her team to fill in, right? And so these four, they really feed off of each other beautifully. We've got the grounding, data-driven person with Michael. We've got the passionate, heart-opening person with Claire. We've got the beautiful, prosperous Kate. And then we have this potential-oriented Julia. And so the mentor knows this. This is why he's put them together. And this is why they're at the airport right now. So as he invites them in, he says, yes, we're going to really learn what it is about your power definition that's truly aligned with you, that at the end of the exercise, which will be in 5 days, we're going to learn an incredible amount, and we're going to come and we're going to have a powwow of what our experience was and what we deem to be the pros and cons. Cool. So they're like, awesome. Michael's looking around and he's like, this airport is freaking beautiful. I've never been in an airport like this. I'm loving all the things. Claire's kind of looking, and she's like looking at the destination board, and she notices a few things, a few exotic places that have been on her bucket list. And then she notices her hometown on there. Kate's kind of looking around, and Kate, right? She's going to prosecute this. She's going to make sure that she gets the most out of this. So she's already in that winning formula, and she's looking around and she's like, okay, see an airport. Yep. Check. I see this, destination board makes sense. I got my overnight bag. I see these 2 hallways. One of them is like, oh, what it says, flight school. Okay, maybe, don't know. And then the other one says, destination unknown, but potential fantastic, right? She's like, okay, that's cool. And Julia's only noticing the potential unknown, like amazing destination, right? And so the mentor, before he bids them goodbye, he says, wait a minute, wait, there's one more thing. You know what? We wanted to make this a real life scenario. We wanted to make sure that you truly were making the best decision for yourself. And so we're going to create some resistance. And so what he says is, okay, now listen. And on the overhead speakers, there's this impending storm. It's going to be disastrous. It's coming imminently, and it's going to impact this airport and or how it's going to impact any destination that you want to go in, because we're not sure if we're going to be able to get out. They're giving no information about what type of disaster this is. They look around, the mentor's gone. People are relatively panicking, but they're like, we know we're not supposed to panic, right? There's a learning exercise here, but we know we need to make a move and we need to make it now. The sounds are getting louder. There's like a siren going off. They're feeling the pressure. They need to make decisions. And then Michael says, yeah, guess what? We have our tickets. Our tickets are going to be able to help us. So we need to be true to ourselves as to what decision we're going to make. And so Michael data, right? He's like, well, we're not in an earthquake zone, and it's most likely going to be a storm that's going to be relating to wind, weather, it's kind of cyclonic activity. So being up in the air probably isn't a good idea. He's like, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay in the airport. I'm going to hunker down and I'm going to ride this out. And all of a sudden he looks down at his ticket and it starts illuminating and glowing and it turns indigo. And he's like, I think this is giving me feedback that it's the right decision for me. And the other women are like, wait. I'm looking down. Mine, I'm thinking about it. Mine didn't glow. Okay, damn. This isn't my power equation. This is not my definition. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, fine. So Michael, off he goes and everybody wishes him well. And then Claire's looking at the board and literally it's almost like the destination of the flight's leaving. She sees one like kind of shimmering and it's her hometown. And she's like, that's where I'm going to go. It's leaving in 5 minutes. We think we can get out and beat the storm. I am going to go and get on this plane and I'm going to be there for, the 5 days until we meet again. And that's where, yep, see you. That's where I'm going. Big hugs. Off she goes. Her ticket illuminates as she's walking and getting her boarding pass to go on this plane. Kate and Julia kind of looking at each other. The tickets have not illuminated at this point. They're like, okay. So Julia looks at Kate and she says, I know what's true for me. I must go into the unknown. That's where I've gotten my greatest success. That's where things have happened. You know what? I am going to take a chance that I'm going to end up either in the eye of the storm or over the storm. So I'm going to go to the left here where, destination unknown. We don't know what the transport's going to be like, but that's the way I vibe. That's what's worked for me in the past. Honestly, less information to me is more. And of course, her ticket illuminates because that's what's been working for her so far. So off Julia goes down that ramp. Kate's kind of looking around. She's like, okay, my ticket is not illuminated with these 3 choices. I'm going to go to the flight school. I'm going to look. I'm going to walk down this hallway. I'm going to learn how to put a parachute on. I'm going to learn how to work the parachute. Hopefully this flight instructor, I can do a tandem jump and, land in the eye of the storm, or we don't have the storm effects at all because, the pilot is going to help us figure this out. So off she goes. And as she's walking down the hallway, her ticket illuminates. That is the right decision for her. So each one of these people under duress, because there are lots of other people in the airport, and a storm did come. Each one of these people, Michael stayed at the airport, Claire went to her hometown, Kate went off to learn things from a flight school and do a parachute jump, and Julia went off into the seeming abyss. They're all now knowing they're going to come back in 5 days. And so whatever experiences they've had, harrowing or not, we return with these people in 5 days. And we see the mentor has given them a destination. They all find their way back. And to be honest with you, they all look a little worse for wear. They've all survived, but they all look a little worse for wear. And so the mentor just sits and says, okay, you each picked 4 different things, right? You each found something out about your power definition. What worked? What didn't work? What was good? What was bad? So Michael starts, right? Because he has so many things to say. And he says, well, guess what? I like to do the research. I like to know things. I like to be safe. He said, but there were times where it was harrowing. He said, I thought the entire airport, it was a hurricane. So I'm glad it wasn't an earthquake. It didn't seem probable that it would be, but I thought we were going to lose the roof and things came crashing down. It was the scariest time that I've ever experienced. So the mentor looks and says, yes. What did you learn? So Michael said, well, he said, I learned that there are really good benefits to knowing things, to having the information, to doing the data, but there is a really, really high value in going other places, even when you don't know where you're going. And the mentor just goes, kind of scratches into his neck, chin and says, oh. And then Claire, what did you find? And she said, I went home. I She said, and it was great. She said, we got through the storm. We flew over it. We landed in the eye of the storm. She said, quite frankly, I didn't run into anything. She said, I kind of thought that the storm didn't happen because I didn't feel any of the effects. The mentor said, well, how did you feel being home? Well, I felt super safe and I was really glad that I did it, except I was bored. I felt like I was missing something. I felt I didn't take full advantage of this opportunity to learn and to experience. Mentor, nods his head. And then what about Kate? Kate, she's like, wow, that's the fastest I've ever learned anything. I had to completely trust the people I was with. I did the tandem jump. She said it got a little harrowing a few places. She said, I thought we were going to be swept away. Quite frankly, we landed at a different destination than we were supposed to. We had to then hike back about, 25 miles. And it was stormy, but it wasn't incredibly stormy. So that was good, but we had to kind of get out of the way of it. We were, living off of these things called MREs. Quite frankly, it wasn't that comfortable, but I survived. And so then the mentor, what did you learn? Well, I learned to follow my intuition, and I learned that there are going to be times where things are going to be uncomfortable, but I'm really glad that I took the time to prepare myself before I left, but didn't take so much time. So all in all, I think things went pretty well for me. Mentor gives no feedback, right? And then Julia, how was your trip? Julia said, guess what? I jumped. We followed like me in a Kate type situation. She said, we jumped. I kind of was landed in the middle of the ocean. I had to put a signal out, and then a boat came and picked me up, and I was really grateful that I wasn't in the storm. She said, because if I was in the storm, I don't know if I would have made it. She said, so, but here I am, and it was a cool ride. And the mentor says, yeah, what did you learn? I really need to take some more time, and I really need to make sure I know what the destination is. So high risk was very evident to me, which is not normally evident. But I met some really cool people. I went to really cool places. So I think I might just get a little bit more data and still kind of take that jump and that leap. So the mentor, he kind of nods his head and he said, you each learned something about the positive aspect of how power works for you. For Michael, you need it to be purposeful. You need to have lots of information. You need to have a lot of knowns. For Claire, your heart needs to be involved. You need to have that passion. You need to feel safe. And you know that there's positive things with that. You also know there's negative things, as do you, Michael. You two will take more of that safe route. So for you, having these big, huge, vast dreams are incongruent with your willingness to take big risks. So having more linear, step by step, and taking bite-sized pieces off of your impact is better for you to be in alignment with your power. For you two, and he looks at Julia and Kate, you were willing to take big risks. You're willing to get those returns. However, both of you want to make sure that you have your destiny known and understand what the equation is for you between the unknown and the known. And once that's dialed in, you will have the high impact. So for you, taking those leaps and making it more of a spiral and not so linear is best for you. Each one of the people were looking around, and they really felt deep, deep, deep within themselves how their power worked and how they could relate to it and how they could depend on it. So for me, in illustrating this story, it's so important to recognize that your power equation or definition is what it is. This is what leads you. This is what drives you. This is more than a mind exercise. When things are in overwhelm, when things feel urgent, what is your initial inclination? It's really important to know how you want to move through resistance, because anybody can stand out here and say, we've got massive transformation or big success, or you can have huge impact. And your mind can even open up to that. And you could say, yes, I'll take action. But at some level, you will be bound by how you want to move through your transition. And your power is what's going to help you and actually drive you. It's going to be the initial driver. This is why I talk about power without compromise, because the power is the purity. You can be purpose-driven, you can be passion-driven, you could be prosperity-driven, or you can be driven by potential. But the power is the central key. Now, I talked about the 8 Ps because the mechanisms that go underneath this for you to be able to stand fully in your power and really appreciate it, but still get the massive impact that you want, are the mechanisms that I use in my proprietary framework. So there's beautiful things around precision that I use. There's tools that I use for your promise. And then there's beautiful predictive formulas that I use that I can give you that exact destination. So I have been taking the time to create story and clarity and formulaic conversion so that I can have a framework that will handle whatever your power definition is and however you are driven at the outset. And we can go ahead and we can fill in so that you're not overworking, you're not hiding, you're not feeling way too much risk, and you're getting the returns that you want to get. When your signal is aligned, and your success and your formulas are all built in the right format and in the right sequence, that's the difference between success and failure. So, thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear who you identified with, whether it was Michael, whether it was Claire, whether it was Kate, or whether it was Julia. I would adore that. I'm writing articles about this and I'm doing a lot of fun group calls. And so if you'd like in on one of those, just go ahead and reach out to us at outreach@kimwoods.com and we'll go ahead and get back to you and let you know where you are in the whole framework of getting to the impact and wealth that you desire. Until next time, happy soul tidings. You've been listening to the Strategic Oracle, where success isn't scaled from speed, but from soul. If this stirred something real, follow it. Apply for activation, enter the vault, or pause right here. Integration is leadership too. Because the truth is, you were never meant to chase the timing. You are meant to become it.